Tonight, Britain lowers the voting age. Should Canada follow? Then, with elections, information, and identity all at risk, what future role should the CBC Radio Canada really play?
And later, can we still trust our wallets as Canada debates redesigning its currency? And we ask, is there still room for cash in a digital economy? From Montreal, this is Night Talk, episode 45. I'm Eddie Tekalik.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. Before we begin, we want you to join the conversation tonight. Post your thoughts in the comment sections below so we can share and discuss. Now, let's dive in. Britain's recent decision to lower the voting age to 16 in some regional elections has reignited debate in Canada. Advocates argue that youth are engaged, informed, and already affected by political decisions, especially around climate, education, and jobs. Critics say 16 is too young for such responsibility, and that political maturity often comes later. The question, is it more democratic or premature? Eddie, your thoughts on that?
Gary, you and I had talked about this before. And this is not taking away from the capability of a lot of 16-year-olds out there, a lot of smart kids. I'm not necessarily convinced that this would be something that would be right for Canada. I know other governments have done it, but here in Canada, I just don't believe a 16-year-old has the whereabouts to understand the importance of their votes, both to them in the immediate and everybody else in the future. What their vote might mean. I'm not sure they're mature enough or they've experienced life enough to understand the impact of the vote and which way their vote might go towards the next government being set up and what that might mean for their futures. Like I said, hats off to 16-year-olds. They got a lot to deal with, but quite frankly, Gary, I really don't think that a 16-year-old is mature enough to process that decision and making the correct one for them. I'm not really for it, if you ask me.
Well, I was somewhat surprised when I did a little bit of research on this recently, and this is what I came up with, Eddie. Voting age comparison. Here in Canada right now, it's 18. That's federal, provincial, and municipal. And of course, in the UK, it's going to be 16 in the next election. Scotland and Wales, 16. Austria, 16 since 2007. Greece, 17. The US and Mexico, 18. And most OECD nations, 18 as well. Now, in Britain, they're joining, as we see, Scotland and Wales, and it's accompanied by automatic voter registration and expanded ID options. Analysts expect younger voters to lean center-left, but not uniformly. So let's take it another level. Neuroscientists argue that 16-year-olds possess the cognitive skills, reasoning, consequence weighing, abstract thought necessary for informed voting. Early enfranchisement can build lifelong civic habits, per examples from Austria and Scotland. Here in Canada, there has been a reform proposal put out. It was floated by a senator, proposed a merit-based enfranchisement mode. 16 and 17-year-olds could earn the right to vote through civic education, verified community service, or recognized public contribution, creating a voluntary path to early voting. That is really I think, a reasonable path to allowing younger people to vote and in getting them to embrace the political system and the importance of what we do as far as voting is concerned, because I don't think they're getting a whole lot of instruction in civic politics.
I don't think so.
Civic government, government at all, in school at the moment. I really don't think that they are. However, on the other side of it, yes, 16 seems like a very young age, but we allow them to get a license and drive.
Mm-hmm.
And as you and I have discussed previously, they're driving, like a 4,000 or 5,000 pound weapon down the street. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trusting them to do it and do it in a reasonable manner. Some kind of fall off the wagon, if you will, and they're not as mature. But you can probably think of a number of people whose maturity level, and they may be in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, their maturity level is no more than that of a 16 or 17-year-old anyway. And they're allowed to do things.
Yeah.
So I'm torn on it. I really think, though, that if it does nothing else other than promote better teachings in school of our civic levels of government and in all levels of government, all politics, we need to really reach out to these young people, because the demographic in this country is aging, and there's now a large proportion of that aging demographic that's at the higher end, where you're kind of looking down the street and you see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not that far off. We need to be getting these younger people involved and understanding the situation and the way things work. And if the parties are smart, the major parties, they should be reaching out and trying to embrace these young people and get them to get into the system and understand things on a better scale, because these are the voters of tomorrow.
True.
And if you don't reach out to them, and you don't reach out fairly quickly, you've lost them. And then where does our society go from there?
Yeah. Well, you know what, Gary? I think absolutely. I mean, there isn't enough civic education in our high schools. Look, I don't remember being exposed to it when I was high school. I don't remember my sons being exposed to it when they were in high school. If said country, Canada, wants to get 16-year-olds involved in the vote, and let's just leave the politics aside out of it, they have to invest in ensuring that part of the curriculum in high school includes the importance of voting. Why is it important to vote? What information should you be seeking to decide where you're going to vote? The importance of the privacy of your vote. All of that, I think, has to be taught in our high schools. I mean, look, we've talked about this in the past. Some high schools don't even teach you how to write a check or manage a checkbook, or nowadays education online on how to pay for a bill or whatever the case is. They don't even teach that, which is rather unfortunate. So, you know what, the government really has to crack down and make sure that high school curriculums include the importance of voting. Our veterans who died for our country and made it possible for us to vote, and the importance of all that history that goes behind it. As a matter of fact, hindsight 2020, I know that Canadian history is mandatory in all high schools, that the kids have to pass that. I think that a segment of Canadian history has to speak specifically on the history of voting, and then just piggyback off of that and continue the education on the importance of voting. At least, as a tax-paying citizen for a very, very long time, I like to have a level of comfort in my mind that the 16-year-old has at least been told or educated about the importance of their vote, and that when they are voting, they're taking into consideration not just themselves, but the general population and the aging population, as you mentioned earlier, that will impact my life as I'm aging, as I'm getting more mature in my age, if you want to put it. I'd love to feel that the 16-year-old is taking it seriously, and they've been educated on this and what the importance is, and to cast that ballot to make it count. That's the important thing, right?
All right, let's grab a couple of comments here. Monel, I wouldn't say generalized, but I don't think that all 16-year-olds are ready. I also think that not all 16-year-olds are not ready, but she can't make it based on, look, you're actually interested. I agree and disagree in some respects, because there are a lot walking amongst us that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're not ready, haven't been, and never will be going forward. The maturity level is really not there. So it's you're at that kind of edge of the cliff, I think, with this one as far as the age. But what is age but just a number? It's not what's inside. Would you agree? And let's see. It's okay, Eddie. I'm not breaking down yet. The 16-year-old from the Parkland shooting down in Florida was an amazing speaker, very, very well read and spoken. He's actually in politics now, but I think he's the exception. Sorry, dictation. Okay. So, yeah.
You have some look. I mean, like we said in the outset, Gary, there's a lot of sharp, smart high school kids out there. All right. I mean,
yep.
We hate generalizing, but like you were saying, there are adults that walk amongst us that still haven't grown up or matured to the level we would expect a functional adult to behave and act. Much so our high school population, right there. I had mentioned earlier on that. I heard what you said about the neurological, the neurologists and doctors are saying about it being great, and a lot of 16-year-olds are capable, and so on and so forth. Then by the same token, you hear same said neurologists say that the female brain matures by the time it's 18. By the time the girl becomes a woman is of legal age of 18, that her brain's already mature. But then you look at us fellows, where the neurologist and the medical profession says that a male's brain doesn't fully mature and grow until they're 25. Yet, like you were saying, they're all still able to drive a car at the age of 16, right? So, I guess the best we can do as citizens is hope that at some point the government actually helps educate not just the 16-year-olds, but also maybe there's something that we can do for the adult population to get them to understand the importance of their votes as well. But I don't know if that's the case of too little, too late. We've been set in our way, and we don't know what the reasoning is for voting. We just do it because our parents have always voted, and our parents have always voted for blue or red. I really don't know, but you know what? Let's not go back to the past and try to correct something that maybe wasn't done right the first time. But I think the governments have an opportunity here to do some good in terms of nurturing our high school kids on being good Canadian citizens. And part of that, and the most important part of that, is the vote. To start with the vote, and why they should vote, and why it's important to research before they vote, and then cast their ballots as responsible citizens of Canada.
The other question is, if they did have the opportunity to vote, they were given that right, would it actually increase the voter turnout? Because let's face it, the voter turnout in our federal, provincial, and municipal elections has not been stellar by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of adults, they have the right to vote. Oh, I'm not voting. It doesn't make any difference. Well, it doesn't make any difference if you don't go and mark your X or fill in your circle. And you sit at home, and then you sit at home bitching, whining, and complaining about the government.
Right.
You know, if you don't get off your ass and go vote on election day, regardless of what level, then don't talk to me for the next 4 years about anything that's happening with the government. You don't have a right. You didn't go and exercise your franchise to vote. And yes, maybe you lost your vote, or maybe I lost my vote, but at least I went and I voted. So therefore, I do have a right to say, I don't like what's happening in Ottawa. I don't like what's happening in Quebec City. I don't like what's happening at City Hall here in Montreal. But you, because you did not get up and go out and at least try to make an informed decision, even if you were picking up some of the information from, of all places, TikTok.
Yeah.
At least you went and you exercised your responsibility. And it is. Democracy is a responsibility. You have freedom, but with the freedom comes the responsibility to make an informed decision, to get out and vote, to do a lot of things as far as how you function in your community and in your province and in your country, and what you can add to it as an individual. So those who don't, and our voter turnouts have been really horrendous, and maybe this will help bolster, but these mainline political parties are missing the boat if they're not reaching out to anyone from at least 15 years up.
Yeah.
And getting in there and really educating them outside of school, because as we've mentioned previously, they're not getting really any solid, I would suggest, education in your responsibilities at the civil level. And therefore, it should be up to the parties to reach out too. They always have their hands out for support, money, financially and otherwise. So, they should be taking some of that responsibility as well to do. We all, as an older generation, we should be trying to pass on to the younger generation what it's all about, and making sure that they're going to bolster democracy by taking an active part, even if it's just at election time, but making an informed choice. You go back to today in Japan. They marked the 80th anniversary of the dropping of the bomb, and that's something that, when you watch any B-roll from Japan at this time of the year, they have young people out. They're really working to ensure that the young people will never forget the horrors of the first atomic bombs being dropped on other humans. And that's, and when you look at what's happening south of the border and how that country is beginning to implode, and you listen to a lot of the supporters, especially on one side in particular, and you're just left shaking your head like, oh my God, like where did they come from?
Right.
again, it's somewhere along the way, the education system has let them down. And the parents and other elders within the family unit and outside of the family unit have let down these younger people by not trying to teach them what democracy is, how fragile it is, and how you can work to protect it as an individual and the responsibilities you have as an individual in a so-called free democracy.
Mm-hmm.
So do I support this? The more I think about it, the more I'm beginning to support it. I was really on the fence, Eddie, really on the fence. But now I'm really beginning to think that it is an idea with merit.
Would you feel comfortable that you have a whole slew of 16-year-olds going out there and voting without any idea as to A, why they're voting, or B, that they may have been influenced by not their own judgment in casting their vote? Wouldn't that be in the back of your mind that you've got a whole slew of 16-year-olds basically just going out there and casting a ballot? Or what are you saying? Are you feeling comfortable that the government will do something to get the kids to understand the importance of voting, and that then you'll feel comfortable that their vote is going to actually count for something important?
No, I don't feel comfortable in believing the government at any level will do anything to better educate the teens on the political side of things and the voting process and what's behind it and what it ultimately could mean. I have no faith in that.
Right.
That's not a sexy kind of thing that you can throw some money at, have some people stand behind you, nodding heads while you're making your points, and then you move on. So, and when I think about it, Eddie, there are a lot of people who I've come across over the years who have gone out to vote and the same concerns that you're raising.
Yeah.
The very same concerns.
They're amongst us.
They're walking amongst us. Seriously, it's one of those things. Okay,
it's true. It's true.
We have a couple more comments to bring up here. Deborah says, Gary MacDonald, you can't be serious. A 16-year-old may vote for someone because they're cute. And that doesn't happen at 30 or 40? Think about that for a moment.
That's true. Well, think about Trudeau-mania, the latest bout of Trudeau-mania.
I rest my case, Your Honor. I rest my case. Right. Thank you for bringing that up, Eddie. Yeah. And Monel says, Deborah, full-grown adult may do that too. Well, yeah. Now, let's see. We have another one. All of this has to start with the schooling, and if it's not taught at school and not taught properly at school, I can't see this working well. Monel, yes and no. Because again, as parents and as a family unit, whether it's the parents or the grandparents or the aunts and the uncles, what I was just saying a little bit earlier, it's up to the family unit as well to impart your knowledge and direction as to how to be a participant in the democratic process in which you live. It's not all government. We can't keep saying, it's up to the government to do something. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yes, the government has certain responsibilities, and yes, we have to hold them accountable and hold them to put their feet to the fire. But by the same token, we have to take responsibility too. And this could be part of the problem with the public education system is we've turned it into really kind of a glorified daycare. And I know, it's probably a good thing nobody can reach me right now, because I'm sure there'd be a few people wanting to come through and grab me by the neck. And so be it, because that's the truth. How many times when there's a snow day called do you hear the moaning, the groaning, the bitching, the complaining about, what am I going to do with my kids? Well, isn't it safer to keep the little tuskers at home than putting them on a bus, or you going out into a snowstorm and driving them there and expecting the teachers to be there and look after them while you go off and, I don't know, go skiing or go home and go back to bed? That's part of the problem with our public education system. It's become all trying to be all things outside of education. Let's stick to the basics. Stick to the damn basics in education. Reading, writing, arithmetic, digital knowledge, politics, democracy, history. Sorry, I got on a tangent, a rant. I'll back off now.
But Gary, it's an important tangent. You're absolutely right. The buck does stop at home. Period. Okay, we can have a whole show about our education system, I'm sure, and spend a good 90 minutes on it. But the buck does start at home, and I think with the support from the government in introducing a component in Canadian history that speaks to voting and tries to educate these kids while they have their attention and not depend on social media to do it, that at least if it's part of the curriculum, when they do go vote, they'll reflect on, oh yeah, I learned this in Canadian history, and just at least reflect on it. That's part one. Part two is absolutely the parents have to take a responsibility in educating their kids as to why they vote and why it's important to vote. The third part behind that is, unfortunately, the way the home votes and how mom and dad vote typically might be the way the child votes, but at least we know that they've had the basics of the way our government works and how important the vote is. So maybe as adults, it might change the decision and cross lines from one political group to the other, like both you and I have, based on what's important for the country and what the candidates can present, right? So I think we need three things here. Number one, us, the parents, have to take responsibility in encouraging their children to vote and make sure they understand the importance of voting, right? B, I agree and maybe somewhat disagree with you. The government has a responsibility to make sure that if they're going to introduce 16-year-olds, I know there are some 40-year-old, 16-year-olds out there as well. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. In this particular case, they have an opportunity to educate the younger population on the importance of the vote. And then point three is, you got to hope that at some point they start making their own decision as opposed to just flying the colors of the family household. So you're 100% correct. It starts at home. The government's there to support you, and then you hope for the best.
Yeah, Deborah kind of says, yes, an adult will do it, but I'm sure more 16-year-olds would. And okay, I'll just, oh boy, I got Gary all riled up. Yeah. Anyhow, here's the other thing, Eddie. Now, there's one more thing that comes to my mind, and that is, as part of this process to enshrine our democracy with our children, our offspring, our young families coming up, take them to a cemetery where there's a field of honor, where you have a lot of veterans of various conflicts buried, and they have the little flags, especially around Remembrance Day, lining the graves, and talk to them about that, and tell them, especially in the First and Second World Wars in particular, there were a lot of people, a lot of the graves that you're looking at, those were kids that were 17 and 18 years old. Some of them lied to enlist.
Right.
About their age. They lied about their age. My father was one who lied about his age so he could enlist. And that, think about that for a minute. Or how about this? Instead of Remembrance Day, which is a holiday, I hesitate to use the word holiday, but it is a civic day or a day off in a number of jurisdictions across the country. It is a stat day off. Other jurisdictions, it's business as usual. But take the kids to the Remembrance Day services, not ceremonies, as I heard it called one day on the radio and damn near went off the road. Service. It's a service of remembrance for those who gave their lives and those who went over and came home maimed and their lives changed and their families' lives changed forever. Take them and start early. Start when they're little tuskers, like just barely up off the rug. Get them used to that sort of thing and to understand what it's about and what conflict is and how war can change a country in a matter now of minutes in a lot of cases. That's part of our responsibility as parents. And again, we're relying on, they'll have some kind of little thing at school. So what do? What are you doing as a parent? Sleeping in that day? Get your ass out of bed and get the little guys off to the nearest cenotaph in the service. Yes, it's cold sometimes. Yes, it's rainy other times. But you know what? Think about what those people who died for us and who fought for us went through in the trenches. I think I'll end my civic lesson now.
And it was a good one indeed, Gary. Always is. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So as I said, Eddie, I'm leaning now more to it's not such a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
I like the proposal that we have about earning it, having some, how did they, could earn the right to vote through civic education, verified community service, or recognized public contribution, creating a voluntary path to early voting. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know why in the hell we don't have that already in place.
We should.
I'm going to look into that more. Anyway, so are you still on the fence?
I'm personally, I think I'm still on the fence. The next election, without anything happening, look, I mean, we have to depend on parents to be parents. Like, you and I can't do anything about that sitting from our chairs beside just speaking about it, and hopefully people are listening. If they were to vote in the next election without any changes, I'd have a problem with the 16-year-old voting. If something gets introduced now to prepare the upcoming voter at the age of 16 through some sort of a program at school where they earn the right to vote by passing something in school as part of their history curriculum or a specific course on voting and the importance of voting in a democracy such as Canada, and they have to pass it in order to get that right, I'd feel much better about it. So I'm kind of on the fence about it right now, Gary. Not taking away from a lot of well-meaning 16-year-olds out there, very informed. You know what? I'm sorry I feel this way. I know I'm generalizing right now, but I'm still on the fence, Gary. I think it's a great idea moving forward, but as of today, I don't think it's a good idea in my books. Not yet. I have hope, though.
Okay, mark this one on the calendar. This is the first time that you and I have kind of
Yeah, true, true.
Yeah.
Doesn't
And
happen often. We'll usually
no,
debate it and then maybe come to a point where kind of,
yeah,
60 to 70% agree and the other 30%'s up for debate.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. Let's mark it down, 7:54 on the 6th of August, 2025.
But you know what? That's healthy debate.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just healthy, and the fact that we can carry on the conversation like this and with the comments as well
Yeah.
is part of our democracy, and it's we're civil. It's civil. So anyway,
Gary, I love it. I love it when our viewers piss in your cornflakes. It's really great to. I love seeing you.
it may be a good thing that some of that blew off in the first segment, because the second segment that's coming up is another one that just really riles
Oh
me
yeah,
at times.
yeah.
Okay, now just before I do that, we just had another comment pop up here. So this will be the last one for this segment. Which one am I on here? Let's get the right one for the comment there. Deborah says, I just can't see it, especially Canadian kids. What are you picking on Canadian kids? I'd like to understand why you think Canadian kids, and see where that goes. But maybe we can pick up on that at another point along the way. Meantime, do you want to shed some of your connections with American tech? Microsoft, Google, especially things like US-based cloud storage, which puts your privacy at risk? Well, you should consider Sync.com, a Canadian-based cloud storage company, subject to Canadian privacy laws. They offer cross-platform and various storage and pricing points. Check the affiliate link below for more information and a free 5 gig account.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. And you know what, Gary? This next segment, I know it's going to touch your heart dearly. It's going to be some nice conversation about it. CBC Radio Canada is facing declining viewership, especially among younger Canadians. The public broadcaster is caught between trying to compete with commercial platforms and delivering nonpartisan public interest journalism. Funding cuts and accusations of bias have only intensified the scrutiny. And the core issue, what should CBC's future look like? Digital first, leaner, more focused, or it reimagined altogether? That's a big one, Gary.
My response is all of the above.
All of the above, huh? Yeah.
All of the above. It's an institution that is adrift, and it's top heavy. I'll get into it a little more in a moment, because I do have another graphic. But before we go to the graphic, actually, Monday, during an announcement the Prime Minister made in Kelowna regarding help for the softwood industry, or softwood lumber industry.
Right.
He was asked a question by a local reporter, and it all centered around like the digital services tax and how Google has arrived at a settlement where and they've been making some of the first payments, and money was distributed to a number of media organizations across the country. Some of which I scratched my head over were their large-scale operations, while the smaller 2 and 3 person operations in small communities across the country got a little bit, but really not a whole lot of money. And they're the ones that have been struggling because they can't use Facebook, because Meta banned all Canadian news on Facebook and Instagram. So there's that situation. Anyway, The Prime Minister came at it with a kind of a different perspective in some respects, but this is what he had to say, and it also, he did bring up the CBC, and I thought it was very timely for the conversation we were about to have.
One of the roles of CBC Radio Canada, is to provide unbiased, immediate, local information, particularly in terms of in situations such as you're referring to. And that's one of the reasons why we've made the commitment to invest and reinforce and actually change the governance of CBC Radio Can to ensure that they are providing those essential services. Now, to your specific question, I personally, and this government is a big believer in the value of what you do. I'm going to use you as a representation on local news, and the importance of ensuring that is disseminated as widely and as quickly as possible. So we will look for all avenues to do that. And I understand your question, and it's part of our thinking around that.
Okay, so let's talk about the CBC for a moment. Again, bring up a little bit of. Oh, there we go. Current annual budget, $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion.
A good chunk of change.
Yep. In 2024-25 budget, they received a $42 million temporary top-up. Now, that top-up came as they were laying off people and paying out executive bonuses at the same time.
Herein the problem.
Lower per capita funding versus other G7 public broadcasters. That one leaves me scratching my head.
Yeah.
Reform proposals indexed to inflation and population. Okay, well, yeah, index the funding to inflation and population. Population size. I don't know if you need to index it to population size, unless you're looking at percentage of the population served. Strategic goals, increased digital reach, and governance modernization. I can tell you where the governance modernization should come in. If we're going to keep a public broadcaster in this country, and don't get me wrong, I think we do need a good public broadcaster. However, I think the CBC has lost its way. It has become bloated at the top and is trying to be all things to all people on all platforms, even some that most of us don't even use, and some of us haven't even heard of. And of course, there's always the cry of the liberal bias with the CBC, especially over the last 10 years where we had a liberal government in power, and we still do. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has said he will defund the CBC, but will leave Radio Canada, the French arm, alone. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if he's talking about increasing some funding to Rad Canada. My question is why? When I first started in the business back in the early 80s, in St. John, New Brunswick, not the biggest city in the country by any stretch of the imagination, and at that time, smaller than what it is now, we had a local CBC radio station. We didn't have a local CBC TV station. As a matter of fact, we did not have even a CBC TV station in the provincial capital. That came a little bit later when there was a consolidation of some of the private broadcasters. I would go out to cover something. I was working for a private broadcaster. I would go out to cover something. I'd take my, at that time, cassette recorder and microphone, notepad, do all of my own interviews, go back to the radio station, take and get the audio that I wanted, write the story, get it all ready, put it on the desk for the morning. While I was covering that same event at that time, it's not like this anymore, but at that time, you would have a CBC reporter, radio reporter. You would have a CBC sound person carrying the tape recorder and a microphone. And sitting back at the radio station was an editor waiting for them to come back. And then the reporter would say, well, this is, these are the audio clips I want. And while the reporter was writing the story and then maybe doing a voicer, the editor was there doing all of the clips up. And, and then you would have an event where you would have CBC English Radio with a couple of reporters. Mm-hmm. You would have CBC TV with a couple of reporters. You'd have Radio Canada Radio with a couple of reporters and Radio Canada TV with a couple of reporters. Now, you don't see that anymore with the CBC, but there are times where you'll still have Radio Canada and CBC covering the same event. And I get it to a point, but more and more, if you're listening now, you're hearing the reporter say, would you repeat that in French? And that's for either the CBC or like one of the other French private networks that may be covering something. And rather than asking the question over again, just get them to repeat the response in mm-hmm. French. That kind of thing used to just burn me to no end, the waste of money and resources. However, in the meantime, you have what was going on as empire building.
Right.
And there are more VPs and managers and what have you at the upper end, especially at their headquarters on Front Street in Toronto, mm-hmm. than they would ever need. I often wonder, what are they doing? What are they doing? Anyway, so they've cut down on the front lines to a degree. And you still have at the upper end, although they do have a new president and CEO. And I watched a clip of her today. She did an interview with CBC Edmonton back in January, just after she took over. She seems to have some smarts about her. I actually was impressed with what I heard, and hopefully she's going to turn the ship around because it's drifting. They have to really start to look at the focus that they have, because they're all over the map, and they can't be all things to all people. Now, at one point there was a suggestion that, okay, let's shut down all of the TV transmitters and radio transmitters and just go strictly on the web. That would be great, except there are parts of the country where they're not served by private broadcasters, and the internet service that they have is less than acceptable. It's almost, at the speeds of dial-up, if it's available at all. Or, people are using satellite-based, and again, unless it's something like Starlink, which is, really expensive now, you have a lot of lag and everything. So shutting down all of the transmitters, I can't see that happening at this point in time. That's something, a future goal for sure. but
Well,
you
you
have to
also got
wait.
a lot of legacy viewers as well. Like,
Yeah,
for example,
yeah.
my dad was a fan of CBC. He loved watching the news even twice a day. He had a hard time working a remote control on the television, let alone going online on the computer. So there's a lot of legacy viewers out there that if they, they can't just arbitrarily cut off that service either, right? They got to take that into consideration.
Well, exactly. And it's a slow process moving in that direction. But I can see where, as you're looking at the numbers, the people who are watching the streaming services, it's going, it goes in that direction. But you do it gradually because you do have, as you say, the legacy viewers, and then we have the far ends of the country. Because if you're a public broadcaster, you, I think, are obligated to serve all areas of the country to the best of your ability.
Correct.
And I think that's where they have to sit down and really think about how they're going to achieve that and have what a couple of the key goals are. I think they have to rethink what they're doing on the digital side of things. They're going in too many different directions. Bring it down to one or two and do those well. That will allow the greatest number of people to access them and access them easily. I don't believe in the CBC carrying commercials on TV. Totally against it. They're taking those commercials, and even though their viewership is declining, they're still getting commercials, and I don't know, they're undercutting the private broadcasters, but that's taking money out of the private broadcasters who aren't getting any great amount of government handouts like the CBC does. So, it's publicly funded. $1.4 billion a year and a $42 million temporary top-up. If you can't operate a decent public broadcasting service on, you might as well say 1.5, 1.6 billion, then maybe some of these people should just take the retirement packages and get out of the way. Yeah. Because I think it can be done and be done on a, saving money on the budget and still providing top-notch program. There is a role for a public broadcaster in this country, and especially now with the consolidation that has been taking place in the private media circles. And along with that, cuts to news and information programming.
Well, let me ask you, Gary, you being such an experienced broadcast journalist, what do you think the mission statement for a public broadcaster like CBC Radio Canada should be? What should their vision be? I mean, I've got my view. To me, this particular entity should be bringing Canadians closer together, providing them with key information that's important to Canadians, something like you and I are trying to do here, right? We're Canadians speaking about Canadian issues for Canadians, right? That's how I envision the CBC to be, and that's how I probably like it to be. It should be bringing Canadians together, good news or bad news. It doesn't matter whether it's we have a liberal government or a conservative government. It should be an entity that's there for all Canadians to be able to absorb. That's my take. What do you think a good vision or mission statement should be for CBC, and then restructure around that?
The first goal should be to work to unify the country, bring the country together. And how do we bring it together? We bring it together through unbiased, solid journalism, and we bring it together through solid programming that highlights Canadian culture and talent. Period. That's what we need to do. And yes, bring in some programming from time to time from other public broadcasters around the world. I think that there's a lot to be gained from that as you share your programming with those broadcasters as well. But I think more than anything is to provide a good level of Canadian programming and news and information, unbiased news and information, to the greatest number of people in Canada as possible.
Right.
Through the 2 or 3 very basic, widespread options for contact, which would include radio and television transmitters, especially in underserved areas, and the web streaming. There should be no commercial content whatsoever. There should be no going out anymore, and I think they've really started to get away from this, spending big bucks on certain sports programming. And I think that that's the responsibility that they should have, and to do it in the most cost-effective manner possible. So that would mean major house cleaning at the upper levels, for sure. And it would also mean figuring out new ways of doing a lot of things better. And I have some friends who work for the CBC and have worked for the CBC, and they've gone into the CBC from private broadcasting. And I know others who have not worked in private broadcasting, but they've been print journalists and have gone over to the CBC. And they're all very dedicated, very hardworking. There are some of the older school who have been around perhaps I hate to say corporate rot, but the corporate, there's a word I'm looking for and it's not coming to me. But anyway, the corporate surrounding where they thought that they were above everyone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the case. Just because a private broadcaster is doing something a little differently and maybe not as expanded as what you're doing on the CBC doesn't mean that that's not any better or any less than what you're doing over here, or that you're any better than what the private broadcaster is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that whole mentality, I guess corporate mentality was the phrase I was looking for. I think that's disappearing slowly. And I think with the rounds of layoffs they've gone through, especially at the lower levels, has really opened some eyes. Now, the CBC is still very much ill within. There's the latest issue is what's his name? Travis Danraj, who essentially said he hosted Canada Tonight up until just before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he said there's a culture within the CBC that really, he thought he was going into a program where he was, his name was going on it. He had wide-ranging powers to shape the program. And he started running into what he says were walls and some, I guess, shall we say, professional jealousy. because he was trying to get some people, and he actually had conservatives coming on and doing interviews with him on his show, but they would not go on like some of the flagship shows, wouldn't go near them in the hosts at all. Anyhow, I watched, he was suspended, he resigned, and he announced his resignation publicly. And the CBC, as late as about a week or so ago, was still saying he hasn't resigned. He's still on, he's still a CBC employee. The guy's out looking for another job. And it's just a host of things. And there is a video that is now on YouTube, and it's somebody recorded. He had a meeting with, I forget what her title is within the organization. She wasn't really HR, but kind of like an HR person. And then a union rep, and there was someone else. But this HR person, in the questions that she was asking and putting him on the spot, it's eye-opening. And if that's part of what is kind of holding the CBC back in a lot of ways, then man, that needs a major house cleaning ASAP. So again, I don't want to belittle the point. My throat's getting sore. I need a drink of water. But the bottom line of it is, I think we need a public broadcaster, but I think the mandate of the public broadcaster has to be redefined. And I think that the overall operation of the public broadcaster also needs to be redefined. Yeah. And with very specific key goals and focus, instead of being sort of all over the map as they are now. They're really drifting.
While navigating all the other competitive networks that are available in Canada for viewers to look at, right?
Well, exactly. But those other networks basically are running nothing but American shows. They're doing what they have to do under Canadian content regulation. But for the most part, in their prime time evenings, and the other side of it is, Eddie, that more people are watching on streaming now than over the air anyway. Mm-hmm. And there's no better example of that than when you look at the YouTube stats, where with YouTube in the States right now, they're the number one streaming service, ahead of Netflix, Prime, Apple, and the rest of them. Number one. So, you have the streaming services, but no ads. And I one thing that really gets to me with a $1.4 billion budget, why do I have to pay to access CBC News Network? True. I'm paying every year when I do my income taxes.
That's right.
That should not be. That should not be. CBC Gem. There's another thing. There's one of their...
Perfect example.
You can get this free on CBC Gem. But when you go in, there's a lot of things that's not there for free. And they've got Gem, and they have CBC News apps, and the CBC News apps aren't full news apps, because they want money from you. So some of their podcasting platforms, I think, are pay-based as well. This is wrong. This is wrong for a public broadcaster, especially at the level. I don't care if they're not getting as much per capita as other G7 countries. What they are getting, they could be doing more with it.
Correct. Than
what they're doing right now, including paying out bonuses to upper level management as they're laying off about 800 employees across the country.
And then furiously defending that.
Yes.
Which gets me.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I don't know if you feel there's a role for a public broadcaster. That's my thought.
Yeah. Personally, as I said on the onset, I think there is a role for a public broadcaster in our country. There should be one, which is representing our country, representing Canadians, communicating information to Canadians that's pertinent to Canadians, coast to coast, north to south. It's all inclusive as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, there definitely is a role for that here in Canada.
All right. Yeah, well, with that, we'll wrap up that particular segment of the evening, and let's just talk about this for a minute. Bear with me. Are you looking for a Canadian-based solution for web hosting? Check out Web Hosting Canada, WHC, a Montreal-based company offering a complete range of web hosting services, domain purchases and transfers, emails, and cloud hosting. Use the affiliate link below to see what they offer at competitive pricing in Canadian dollars. This one's going to be a lot of fun. A growing online movement is calling for an overhaul of Canada's currency design, and some are asking whether we need physical money at all in the digital world. Are we ready for a redesign or a cashless future? What are you ready for, Eddie?
You know what? I don't want to sound too old here, Gary, but I kind of like the crunch of money in my fingertips.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I don't mind the digital wallet services. I use my phone all the time as much as I can, but from time to time, I love feeling the crunch of cash in my hand. How often do I actually use cash? You know what? I have to admit, not very often. So, am I on the digital wave? Absolutely. I do have a preference for cash, but I don't use it all that much anymore. And as a matter of fact, I used to work for a company that specialized in digital wallets and payment solutions. So I've been exposed to the technology behind it, and it's absolutely mind-boggling what can be accomplished without actual hard cash, right? Um, yeah, I do pay with my phone. I do use hard plastic very often. I'll take up my wallet and I'll just tap. And it's very rare now that I actually use hard cash, although I like the feel of it in my hands from time to time. And you know what? Let's the world is going digital. You know, I can see how governments would like to see a further push towards using digital cash, digital wallets. I can see how a lot of individuals that work out there that like to be paid in cash for obvious reasons why they would miss hard currency, because then it's trackable. Personally, yeah, I'm a digital guy right now. Although I have a preference for cash, and I do miss it. But the world is definitely going digital wallets. Europe is just prevalent with digital payment processing, whether it's uh, debit cards, prepaid cards, and whatever else. It's just rampant out there. Very cash is becoming very minimized out there in terms of hard cash, and everything's going digital anyway. So you know what? It is what it is. The world is evolving, and it's going to be a cashless world moving forward. Excuse me, cashless. Yes.
So, as a person who likes cash in hand, do you think it's time for some changes to the designs on our coins and our bills?
You know what? I mean, you know, our money, in terms of the look and feel, I think from a technology perspective, and the fact that it's in relatively indestructible. Um, you know what? Why waste money on a complete redesign, retest, um, moving forward and spending I don't know how many millions of dollars in investment to getting this done, and then getting it printed, and then replacing everything that's out there now, when the world is really going towards digital. I don't know, Gary. I'm not sure from a business management perspective, that's money wisely spent in creating new money when hard cash currency is on the decline around the world. I'm not sure it's money well spent.
Well, there's our next $20 banknote design. And the $5 banknote, which is in honor of Terry Fox, that was announced in December of last year.
Right.
I haven't heard or come across anything on the toonies or the loonies, but it's the most ridiculous things I've ever come across. Thank God we got rid of the penny. But, you know, I don't carry cash. I don't want it around.
Mm-hmm.
I want nothing to do with cash at all. And I really kind of get offended if somebody tries to force me into a cash transaction. Because that's just the way I am. That's just the way I roll.
So if I asked you to loan me a 20, you couldn't do it, right?
No, I couldn't. I seriously, I don't have a 20. I have a wallet.
Yeah.
And it's full of receipts, like almost it's becoming like a George Costanza wallet. And I have, cards and transit cards and things. And that's it. That's all that's in my wallet. I just detest the most that I'll put in my pocket, my keys. And they're down to a minimum now, so I don't have this big honking, ring of keys. And if a few situations where I've had cash and I ended up with change in my pocket, it just drove me crazy.
No, the change, yeah, that was a pain. I couldn't stand change.
So, and the bills are dirty anyway, and they're all like, and God knows what drug dealer had handled them before you get them, and then all of a sudden you're swiped going through security at the airport, and ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, true.
Like, really, it's, I don't see a use for it anymore. I much prefer to do everything online, banking. I don't want to see my banker. I don't mind sending an email, send me money, but
Right.
I don't want to go in.
Come to think of it, I mean, I'm just reflecting back in the last year, the circumstances where I actually used cash. Tips. I think that's pretty much about the extent of it. I mean, recently we moved. When the movers, they're breaking their backs getting their stuff into the apartment. If they're nice and everything else, you flip them a 10 or whatever the case is. And they're very appreciative of it. I don't mind that at all. But honestly, I think over the last year, I've used cash for tipping people more than anything else, whether it's here at home or even when we've traveled. You're on a cruise ship or whatever the case is, you flip somebody some money, not coin, but actually paper money, bills. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't remember when I really used hard cash to pay for anything. Hard pressed to remember, even though I have a preference for it, to feel it. No, I haven't used it. To tell you honestly, the last year it's all been for travel and tip money.
The last time I used cash was a year ago when we moved, and I went and got, like you say, some money for the tips, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And if I could find a way around doing that, I would. And you know what? I think probably now you can. I know Apple has a function. I don't know if it's available in Canada yet, but a function where you can just pay, just hold your phone next to the other person's phone and transfer the money that way. And I would much prefer that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go to a banking machine. And on Monday, we were up through on Peel Street and went by the CIBC main branch. and I'm kind of looking in at this place on the way by, this huge, empty floor, main floor, which I'm sure was once a very thriving, busy area, bank branch, the main branch.
Mm-hmm.
Now you could shoot a cannon through and you'd be lucky if you hit anything at all.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Let's say, for example, you're going to go get some sort of a service someplace. I don't know. You booked a massage or something,
Yep.
and you really want to go, and they basically say cash only. Now, you as a consumer, are you going to say, "I don't think so," or are you going to go to the bank, pick up some cash, and pay them? Good question. Right?
It is a good question.
How far are you willing to go, right? To go to the bank, get cash when the operation should be in a position to accept an electronic transaction of whatever sorts.
You know what, Eddie? Unless there's some extreme outside pressure, and sometimes that doesn't work, I just become that much more firm in my resolve.
Mm-hmm.
I'd pass.
Yeah.
I don't want to be bothered going to and I'm certainly not going to an ATM in a convenience store.
Right. That's asking for trouble.
Yep. And I'm not going to go to an ATM at another bank that's not the one I deal with.
That's an extra $3 right there.
Yep. To hell with that. I'm not giving them that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no. And here's the thing, and this got me thinking about this Monday. We stopped at a eatery in the city center, just off St. Catherine Street. And the door, on the front door going in, it said no cash.
Ah, interesting.
Yep. It's the first time I've noticed that. Yeah, it's the first time
I've ever seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it was a small location, but they had a big terrace on the street out front, and it's part of a local chain of restaurants in the Montreal area. Yeah. And in this one, and it's, I mean, they've got business people coming in and everything all day long, for lunch and snacks and what have you. And no cash.
You know what? Sometimes to help out a smaller establishment, a restaurant or whatever the case is, rather than using a credit card, which can be expensive for them, I'll pass a debit card, which is more economical for them, just to be a nice person. Okay, great. I don't get, collection of points, but if it's a small family establishment, I don't mind helping out by passing my debit card. It's very rare I get asked for cash, but I'll pass my debit card as opposed to a credit card, which can charge anywhere between 2.5% to 3%, sometimes 4%, depending on what they're offering as a service. So I'll do that to help them out from time to time, passing a debit card.
Well, I have a little thing on the go, and I've used Square. And I switched over to this very basic online bookkeeping service just so I could make it a little easier for me at tax time. Anyway, long story short, they had a different supplier so that when you invoice, they can pay, just click the button in the invoice and pay it by credit card, or they can pay it by debit card.
Right.
And they're taking a whack of change for
the credit card companies.
Yep. Now, the only saving grace, I guess, is that the accounting program tracks it. So at the end of the year, that's one of my business expenses, is whatever I lost in commission.
Right.
To the credit card company or the debit, the bank. But both this I can't remember the name of it, and Square, they're pretty much at the same level as far as the percentage they take. Now, some places I've noticed will add an administrative fee on your invoice, which, as I look at it now, when I get an invoice like that, I realize what they're doing is they're covering the cost of what these companies are going to take for making it easy to pay.
Yeah.
But again, I'd rather that than waiting for a check. Because the minute they get the invoice by email, all they have to do is click, bang, and I've got the money within hours. Instead of waiting for a check in the mail, which, with Canada Post, God knows when you'll get it, if you get it at all.
If you get it at all, right.
Yeah. And, but then at the very least, you can take a picture and deposit it without having to go to the bank, which is great. But still, to wait that amount of time, they pay money for the checks. They pay somebody to process, to punch out the check on the computer, and then they pay some exorbitant price to mail it. What's wrong with you? Just send it digitally. So I'm a big fan of digital. I fully think that the cashless society is one step away, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you get mugged, all they're going to get is a phone, and if it's locked down, they're not going to get anything.
Right.
They're not going to thump you around and turn you upside down and shake the change out of your pocket to get some money. Stores will be a little bit safer, because they don't have cash on hand for the, fly-by-nighter type burglars. So, and it's so much easier, so much more convenient. The internet goes down. Okay, you're out for a bit, but still, you don't have to drag your butt out somewhere in the middle of winter on a cold day to go to a bank, to whatever. Even now, some documentation that before they'd say, oh, we'll mail it to you or you come in and sign it. They can just send it digitally now. It's secure.
Well, you know what? I mean, very similar to our segment too, we talked about the CBC going full digital, and I brought up the fact that there are a lot of legacy viewers out there. You know what? If you really think about it, in a cash society, it probably caters more to the legacy people when it comes to buying goods or paying for bills or whatnot. And God rest his soul, I relate to my dad right away. He didn't want to know heck from a Shinoloo to a credit card. It was cash. He'd go to the bank weekly, step in front of a human being, withdraw his cash, and he would pay with cash. And there are a lot of legacy users of currency, hard cash. But at some point, there's going to be far and few between of those types of users of our currency, and we're probably going to be in a completely cashless environment. I can see that happening in 10 years, 15 years, maybe, where cash is no longer necessary, if at all.
How about Joe checking in? Cryptocurrency. He's used it for online purchases.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm that progressive yet, but okay.
I am a little skeptical, but you'll have to take it for a second, Eddie. It's my throat.
Yeah, not at all. Well, you know what? I myself are not into cryptocurrency yet. I have an understanding of it. I haven't invested in it yet, so I'm not exactly sure how it would be used. But Joe, you're not the first person that told me that I've heard is using cryptocurrency for online purchases. Good on you. I'm just not there yet. And you know what? I mean, that's another digital alternative in terms of replacing cold hard cash. On top of digital wallets and whatnot, there's also the cryptocurrency piece, only because it keeps you anonymous. Oh, that's true too. That's true too. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Just so viewers can see that.
You neither, right, Gary? Not yet?
No.
No.
I when it first started coming out, I tried to get my head around it, and I couldn't. And like, I'm not the brightest person in the world. As a matter of fact, when it comes to some things like this in particular, I'm dumb as a post. But it's really becoming more coming into the norm, and so I've got to really make a real effort to get a better understanding of it, and probably at some point, once I do get a better understanding, start moving in that direction as well.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, Joe, that's interesting. But it's the anonymous part is really very interesting.
Yeah.
For sure. So, and I'm sure like the generation coming behind us, Eddie, will be more into the cryptocurrency than what we are.
Yeah.
Because they're closer to the ground with it than we are. I guess we're still in the Apple range. So anyway, we're getting to a point where it's probably time to wrap it out. Wait, Joe just came back in. He purchased a grand total of $50 in Bitcoin only to try it out. And so, Joe, would you go back and do some more? Be interesting to see what he comes back with.
I guess he's experimenting. I don't blame him.
Yeah, why not? It's only $50. But I'm just waiting to see if he's going to come back. Maybe while we're waiting for Joe to come back with an answer, I want to go back because remember Deborah said she just can't see it, especially Canadian kids, and I asked why.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, her answer came in just after we moved to the next segment. And she says, Canadian kids seem to be more innocent. They haven't had much adversity. They just seem younger to me. Okay. I never thought of it from that perspective.
I guess you're speaking towards the maturity of kids today, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, Joe hasn't gotten back to us. Anyway, I'm still in favor of a cashless society. Call me crazy, but I don't like having cash in my pocket. Okay, and Joe just came in. Okay, so he's going to be very selective in how he uses it.
Yeah.
At this stage, anyway. Maybe as he gets into it more, he'll find a better way or feel more comfortable with it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. You know what? Like you and I mean, that's not a bad way to go about it. Buy $50 worth of it and learn. Learn from
exactly.
I guess, right?
Yep, go for it. Okay, and with that, I think it's about time that we wrap it up. Because one thing, I don't know, my voice is going to hold out much longer, and I'm sorry about that. But anyhow. It's just one of those things tonight for some reason. So that's our time for tonight. And probably just as well because I've been on a real tear tonight. That's why my voice is not with me. So anyway. So remember this, whether you vote at 16 or 60, watch CBC or stream something else, tap to pay or tuck away cash, what matters most is you think about what's shaping your world. Thanks for joining us. If you liked our stream, give us a thumbs up and share it. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down and say why. And either way, don't forget to subscribe so you can come back and give us another thumbs down. Eddie?
And if you have an idea for a topic you'd like for us to discuss, why don't you send us an email at contact@nighttalk.ca or leave a comment with a suggestion. In the meantime, if you're actually viewing one of our replays, leave a comment with your thoughts. We'll respond to it as it helps us to expose our stream and channel to more people like you. I'm Eddie Kalik. Have a good night.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. Night Talk returns in 7 days. Good night.